Welcome to this lesson on how to simplify surds, and in the first example simplify the square root of 8 or simplify root 8. And the first thing you need to do when simplifying surds is have a list of perfect squares in front of you like I've got here. So 4 is equal to 2 squared, so 4 is a perfect square. 9 is equal to 3 squared. 4 squared equals 16, and so on, all the way up to 10 squared equals 100. Now you can keep going if you've got very large numbers that you have to simplify, or large surds that you have to simplify. And remember that a number squared is equal to that number multiplied by itself. So 10 squared is equal to 10 times 10, which equals 100. And also the square root of 100 is what number multiplied by itself equals 100, and the answer to that is 10. So what you have to do to simplify the surd is to look for the biggest perfect square, or the biggest number in the list that goes into 8. Now any number bigger than 8 won't go into it a whole number of times, so that only leaves numbers smaller than it, and the only number that's smaller than 8 in the list is the number 4, which does go into 8. So you then put the number from the list first and multiply it by whatever it's multiplied by to equal 8, which is 2. And then the next step is to separate those two numbers into the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. And if you always put the number from the list, the surd for that number first, then you'll always be looking for that number, the answer to that number as your next step. And what is the square root of 4? That's equal to 2. 2 times root 2 is the next step, and that's equal to 2 root 2, which means 2 times root 2. So even though this step here is correct, you would write your answer as 2 root 2. Second example, the square root of 48. And once again, going down the list of numbers until you find a number that goes into 48 a whole number of times. 36 would be the first number that might go into 48 a whole number of times, and to check this you would just go 48 divided by 36 on your calculator and see if you get a whole number on your calculator as the answer. And you don't in this case, so you would next do 48 divided by 25 and you still don't get a whole number on your calculator. Then you would go 48 divided by 16 and you would get the number 3 on your calculator. So that means 48 is equal to 16 times by 3. Once again, separating the two surds, or the two numbers under the surd, into square root of 16 times by the square root of 3. Square root of 16, what number times itself equals 16? The answer is 4. 4 times root 3, and then you would write 4 root 3 as your answer. In example 3, square root of 200, and the biggest number in the list that goes into 200 is 100, and 200 divided by 100 equals 2, so 100 times 2 is what you'd write as your next step under the square root sign. Separating those two, you get root 100 times root 2, and the square root of 100 is equal to 10. 10 times root 2 equals 10 root 2 is your answer for that one. In this example, you have a fraction 2/5 multiplied by root 50. So the first step I'll do is 2/5 times by root 50, and then the next step is 2/5 multiplied by, and the square root of 50, looking for the biggest number in this list that will go into 50, and that is 25. So the next step is to write 25 times by 2. 25 times 2 equals 50. The next step is to go 2/5 and separate those two numbers, so root 25 times root 2, that's equal to 2/5 times by, and the square root of 25 is 5 times root 2. Now to multiply a fraction by a whole number, all you have to do is put the number 5 over 1. Any number is itself divided by 1, so 5 divided by 1 equals 5, or how many 1s in 5 equals 5. That's why 5 equals 5 over 1. And the reason that you need to put it over 1 is so you can multiply the numbers in the fractions together. So it's tops together, bottoms together. So 2 times 5 is 10 on the top, and 5 times 1 is 5 on the bottom. And the reason that you actually have to put the 5 over the 1 is so that you multiply the 5 by the top number here. Some students go 5 times 2 and 5 times 5 and get the wrong answer. So you always put it over 1 so that you do it correctly. So that's 10 over 5 times root 2. And 10 divided by 5, or how many 5s in 10 is equal to 2. 2 times root 2 equals 2 root 2, and that's the answer to that question. One more example, and this one, minus 2 root 40. So this time the surd's being multiplied by a negative number. So all you have to do, it's similar to the fraction, just keep that minus 2 at the front, and then simplify the surd as I did in the first 3 examples. So the biggest number from the list is again going to be the number 4. None of the other numbers go into 40 a whole number of times. So put the 4 first, and then 4 times 10 equals 40. So minus 2 times by, and then separate the surds, all the numbers under the square root sign. And then the square root of 4 is 2, so the next step is minus 2 times 2 times square root of 10. And then minus 2 times 2 is minus 4, and minus 4 times root 10, which you would then write as minus 4 root 10, and that's that one done. So that's how you simplify surds, and when you've got a fraction multiplied by the surd and a negative number times the surd, just keep that number that's out the front already out the front, and then just simplify the surd as I've done here. And in this example, remember that a minus times a positive is equal to a minus or a negative number. And when you're multiplying fractions or a fraction by a whole number, remember to put the whole number over 1, and then tops together, bottoms together, and then simplify the surd as I've done in the first 3 examples. So that's about it for this lesson. I'll see you in the next one.